Thank you, Acting Speaker. I'm pleased to rise today to speak on the Domestic Building Contracts Amendment Bill 2025. And listening to the debate so far, it's been a very respectful debate, actually. I'm going to go into a few things on this bill that I think that possibly we don't oppose this bill, for starters. Okay, we all recognise that consumer protection is very important. And to the previous member's statement, we do need to find a balance between consumer protection and keeping the building industry going, because as rightly pointed out, we need builders to build homes, and now more than ever we need that to happen. But I've read through this bill and there is a couple of concerns, and a lot of the building regulation or legislation that has come through this place since I've been here has been due to the collapse of Porter Davis. 2,600 homes, people lost deposits. It was a big hit in the construction industry. No one saw it coming, probably except for the directors of Porter Davis themselves, but the industry didn't see it coming. And rightly pointed out earlier that, you know, when someone builds a home, it is more than likely going to be their single biggest investment in their lifetime. It will be, there's no doubt about that. For most of the people in Victoria, it is their single biggest investment. And I've said this in this chamber before, it should be the most exciting time in their life, but unfortunately, so many people get caught out. And they get caught out for various reasons. They don't read their contracts properly, they don't double check things, builders go into liquidation, as we've seen more prevalence of that in the last 3 years than what was seen in the last decade. But I do have a concern in this. Now, when Porter Davis went broke, Porter Davis didn't go broke building $1 million homes. They didn't go broke building $1 million mansions. About 10% of houses built in Victoria are over that $1 million contract price. Only 10%. So we've got cost escalation here for homes over $1 million of 5%, up to 5%. Now, there's a couple of things around the cost escalation that I have concern with, and maybe the government may listen and fix it up in regulation. I don't have a problem with cost escalation on materials. I don't. That's fair. The builders can't control the costs. We don't know. Everything's linked to global prices now, so a lot of price rises will happen beyond the control of our domestic supply. But I do have a problem with cost escalation for labour, because I just sit back and wonder, I go, well, do I want to give myself a pay rise and charge a client another 5%? I don't think that's quite right. Materials, absolutely fair enough. Labour is within the individual's control, or I had a subby that priced the job and decided I didn't put enough on it, I'm going to go on the cost escalation and get a bit more labour. I'd keep it narrow to materials, because I think that's fair. I think that's fair. But what I would also like to see is a drop from that 1 million threshold down to about 600,000, because that's where most of our homes are built, probably even lower, actually, about 500,000, 5% of 500,000. It's just my personal opinion. When I sit back and go 90% of the market is below $1 million, why aren't we looking after the market, the rest of the market? We're only aiming at 10%. And I think that's probably a little bit misguided. I actually believe if you're going to have cost escalation, you need to drop that threshold. Because as I said, Porter Davis did not go broke building $1 million homes. Most of their homes were probably in and around that, $500,000-600,000 mark, and that's where I think we should really need to focus it. And I think to just have it at 1 million may not help builders with price escalation. If you're building 20 homes under $1 million and prices go up 10%, well, you're actually going to risk going into liquidation. And we know what happens to consumers when a builder goes into liquidation. It will end up costing them more to finish that house. So that, by lowering that threshold, could save a lot of grief for a lot of people. And I think that's important to remember. Every time a builder goes into liquidation, for a consumer to get that house finished after that builder's gone broke will probably cost them 30 to 40% more on the remaining of the contract. because another builder has to take over that liability. So he will charge extra for that. And I think this is where we've missed the mark a little bit on this bill. I think you should lower it because I feel as though it could alleviate a lot of grief down the track. And it really does need to be considered. I've said this before in this chamber, and I'll say it again, that I fear the government is missing the point a little bit when it comes to construction. As I said, most of this bill is pretty good. We don't have an issue with it. The industry doesn't have an issue with it. But the member for Morwell touched on it earlier about waterproofing. I keep saying this to the government, we need to fix the problems at the front end so people have security. And waterproofing is one of those trades that isn't regulated. There's no qualification for it. And although you have to supply a waterproofing inspection when a new home is, certificate when a new home is built, no inspection is carried out. And someone referenced the block before and how good the block is. Well, I reckon the block's the biggest load of crap on television. Yep, absolutely. As a builder, I look at that show and it sends all the wrong messages as far as I'm concerned. Yes, they come in and look at the waterproofing and they say, oh, you know, it's not quite right. They're not even qualified to do it. I've seen on the block, the foreman on the block go up and do a frame inspection. He does a frame inspection. He's not a building surveyor. Exactly. Who is he? What is he? I think the block's a disgraceful project. I hate it. Absolutely hate it. Well, I don't want them. I don't want them in Narrabeen, I can tell you right now. Anyway, can I get back to the bill, you lot? So the government really needs to look at legislation around the inspection of waterproofing and the inspection of insulation. We're in a time now where we have energy ratings around homes and insulation isn't inspected either. So, as I say, no one really knows if they've got R25 walls in the bat or R15 walls in the bat. Bats in the walls. They don't know what's in the ceilings unless they get up there and have a look. And there's a fair chance that if most people jumped up in their ceiling to have a look at the insulation, they will not know what they're looking at. It's a given. So why don't we bring in those inspections to protect consumers so they have the right energy ratings and the waterproofing is up to date? Get waterproofers licensed is number one. They're actually not licensed. Even the member for Tarneet could be a waterproofer, although if he goes like he does in Parliament, he'd never be at work. He'd get kicked out all the time. He'd definitely be a work-from-home guy, that bloke, I can tell you. Definitely working from home with the amount of time he spends in this chamber. But acting Speaker,
Order.
There is another way. Acting Speaker, seriously. Thank you, Acting Speaker. Look, as I said, I don't have too much of an issue with this bill. The only other thing in closing I will say is this. I still haven't seen, in all the bills that have entered into this parliament, I still haven't seen real protection on deposit. Yes, there's fines. Yes, you'll get your licence cancelled. There's all these things were brought in over the journey on different building legislation bills, but I still have not seen that piece of legislation that is their deposit is 100% guaranteed. And if we remember back to the Porter Davis issue where a lot of people lost their deposits, and I think at the time, and I'm happy to be corrected, but I think the government put in about $15 million to help those people out. Well, that's a cost back to the Victorian taxpayer, and rightly so, those people had to be helped out, don't get me wrong there. I still have not seen this one piece of legislation that absolutely 100% protects deposits, because a builder can still take a deposit without the proper insurance. He can still go into liquidation. He might take 20 of those, and he still goes into liquidation. He still takes those deposits, and those people miss out. So what I'd like to see, if there's another building legislation bill coming in, and hopefully there will be, I want to see 100% guarantee protection of deposits So the dodgy builders get caught, and as far as I'm concerned, the dodgy builders, they can get out.